Senator Josh Hawley arrived at the dais with a list.
This is what was happening under Joe Biden. United States senators spied upon. Former presidents, the political opponents of the president at the time, targeted, prosecuted. Pro-lifers, targeted, prosecuted. Catholics, targeted, prosecuted. 92 conservative organizations put under surveillance, targeted for potential prosecution. Gee, I don't know. Would you call that an example of weaponization, Attorney General Bondi? Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Senator Hawley, that is the ultimate weaponization, and weaponization under Donald Trump has ended. It has ended. Harmeet Dillon is running our civil rights unit, and she is doing an incredible job. No longer will parents be targeted. No longer will parents who care about whether their elementary school children have to read a transgender book be targeted and told they cannot have any say in their child's education. That has ended under this administration. People can worship freely, whether they're Catholics at synagogues or Muslims. Everyone can worship freely. That was the ultimate weaponization. They were targeting Catholics. No longer. They have been targeting so many American citizens throughout this country. And Senator Hawley, you have been a champion of this, and thank you for being a champion of that. But under Donald Trump's watch, it has ended.
Not a long one, but a pointed one. 8 names, 8 sitting United States senators. And a claim that, if accurate, represented one of the most serious abuses of federal law enforcement power in recent memory. When his turn came during the Senate Judiciary Committee's oversight hearing, Hawley wasted no time establishing the ground he intended to hold. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies, Hawley said, referencing earlier Democratic statements during the hearing. Then he paused. That's interesting. Because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. The room shifted. Hawley continued reading from the list he had written down. His phone, Lindsey Graham's phone, Marsha Blackburn's phone, 5 others, all sitting United States senators. All, according to Hawley, targeted under Operation Arctic Frost, a surveillance effort he tied directly to Jack Smith's Special Counsel investigation, and through that to the Biden White House. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who had already spent several hours fielding questions from both sides of the committee, listened. When Hawley turned to her directly, the exchange became something more than a political statement. It became an inquiry, and Bondi's responses shaped what the public record of that moment would ultimately contain. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi, Hawley said. What was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators? Bondi's answer was measured, but clear in its limits. Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now, for very good reason. Hawley pressed. He wanted a commitment, not just an acknowledgement. You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct? We will be looking at all aspects of this, Bondi said, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this. That response opened the door to Hawley's next move. He wasn't satisfied with a general assurance. He wanted specificity. Who signed off? Who knew? Who would be held accountable? You're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off on it, who knew about it. You're going to get to the bottom of all of it. Is that correct? Yes, Bondi said, and I've spoken to Director Patel about it, and he is committed to doing this as well. What followed was Hawley's broader case, built from the specific outward. He acknowledged that the phone surveillance alone was serious, but he argued it was part of a pattern, not an isolated event. Jack Smith, he noted, reported directly to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Garland, in turn, served under President Biden. Hawley cited a New York Times report from April 2022 describing Biden as having confided to his inner circle that Trump should be prosecuted and as having grown frustrated with Garland for not acting more decisively. He appoints his own hitman, Jack Smith, who goes after the president, former president, who goes after members of this body. Hawley said he was building a chain of authority, connecting the surveillance of senators to the top of the previous administration. Then Hawley shifted to a second document. An FBI memo from, he said, the same general time period in which the Bureau sought to recruit informants inside Catholic parishes, he laid it alongside the senator surveillance, treating both as examples of the same institutional impulse. An FBI directing its investigative resources at political opponents and disfavored groups. Let me just say that again for my colleagues, Hawley said, tapping the phones of United States senators. This isn't hypothetical. This isn't maybe what will you do in the future. This happened. If you find this kind of direct reporting on congressional oversight valuable, consider subscribing to this channel. These exchanges rarely make it into the broader coverage, and they matter. The force of Hawley's argument rested on the distinction he was drawing. He was not asking the committee to imagine a future abuse. He was presenting what he described as a documented past one. The school board memo, the prosecution of pro-life demonstrators, the surveillance of conservative organizations, and now the phone records of sitting senators. In Hawley's framing, each was a brick in the same structure. Bondi, for her part, did not dispute the substance of his characterization. Where she declined to comment, it was on the operational details of an ongoing review, not on the underlying premise. Senator Hawley, that is the ultimate weaponization, she said, and weaponization under Donald Trump has ended. That alignment between questioner and witness gave the exchange a particular texture. This was not a confrontation in the traditional sense. Hawley was not trying to extract a concession from a reluctant witness. He was, instead, building a public record with a witness who largely agreed with his conclusions, while using her limited answers about investigative details to highlight how much remained unresolved. Hawley's call for a special prosecutor came near the end of his remarks. He wanted one assigned solely to investigate the surveillance of senators, the Catholic parish infiltration effort, the prosecution of Mark Houck, and related matters. He argued that accountability required more than internal review. It required a formal, independent, investigative structure with full transparency at the end. I think we need a special prosecutor, Hawley said, whose sole responsibility will be to get to the bottom of what has happened in every instance that I have just named. Bondi did not commit to that specific mechanism in her response. She reaffirmed that weaponization had ended under the current administration and praised Hawley for his advocacy on these issues. But she did not announce a special counsel appointment from the witness chair. The question of whether that step would be taken remained open. There was one moment in the exchange worth isolating because it illuminated something about the limits of what a congressional hearing can resolve. When Hawley asked Bondi directly who had ordered the tapping of senators' phones, she said she could not discuss the details for very good reason. That phrase carried weight in both directions. It suggested an active investigation with ongoing sensitivities. It also meant that the hearing, despite its length and intensity, would not produce the answer Hawley was most directly seeking. Chairman Grassley, who had been managing the hearing's pace, later addressed the same issue when Senator Graham asked whether there would be a separate hearing specifically on the Arctic frost revelations. Grassley said he had not ruled it out, but wanted to wait for the FBI to report what it could. The disclosure had come just 24 hours earlier, and he asked for time to assess it. Graham pushed back, noting that he did not want to wait 24 years for an answer. Grassley acknowledged the concern. That brief interjection from Grassley and Graham did not alter the central dynamic of Hawley's exchange with Bondi, but it confirmed something important. The committee itself, on a bipartisan basis, in terms of institutional interests, was treating the Arctic frost revelations as a matter requiring formal follow-up. The question was not whether there would be more scrutiny. It was how much and through what mechanism. Hawley's framing placed the surveillance of senators within a longer arc of what he described as systematic targeting. He mentioned Watergate by name, and then said what was uncovered in the previous 4 years surpassed it. That is a significant historical claim, and one that will be tested by whatever investigations or hearings follow. But Hawley made it not as speculation, but as a conclusion he treated as supported by the record he had reviewed. Bondi's engagement with that framing was notably direct. She did not deflect the historical comparison. She said the conduct shattered public faith in government. She said it was the ultimate weaponization. She said it had ended. What she declined to do was open the investigative file in the middle of a hearing, which is a standard limitation for any sitting attorney general dealing with ongoing reviews. The exchange ended with Hawley yielding and a call from Hawley to Grassley to hold dedicated oversight hearings. The chairman noted he had not ruled that out. Bondi remained at the table, having confirmed that she and Director Patel were engaged on the matter, and that more answers would come, though she could not say when or in what form. What the hearing produced, as it relates to Hawley and Bondi, was a compressed version of a much longer institutional argument. The senator arrived with documents, a list of names, and a theory of coordinated political targeting. The Attorney General confirmed the gravity of the underlying conduct, affirmed the commitment to investigate, and declined to provide operational specifics. The result was a public record of agreement on the problem and ongoing ambiguity about the resolution. That combination, clear moral framing with procedural uncertainty, is often how these moments land in real time. The fuller picture emerges later, through reports, disclosures, and, potentially, the kind of dedicated hearing Hawley was asking for. What the exchange between Hawley and Bondi established, clearly and on the record, is that the surveillance of 8 sitting United States senators is now a formal subject of investigation at the Justice Department and the FBI, and that at least one senator whose phone was among those targeted intends to keep pressing until the answers are public. If you want to follow how this develops, including any future hearings, disclosures, or official findings related to Arctic frost, subscribing to this channel is the best way to stay with the story as it moves forward.